Today we're going to be troubleshooting the Ortho model trimmer. We're going to be doing it in the lab on the fly. Hopefully this will be helpful. This is not good. The plate upon which you slide the orthodontic model into the rotating wheel cannot, I repeat, not be set at 90 degrees. This is how it should look. Attachment is always in, it's slid back, and it's screwed all the way down by that knob on the bottom until it's flat with the base upon which you're going to slide the model into the wheel. So this is what I need you to get out so that we can do this little mini experiment. Now we're jumping to adequate base for orthodontic models. The plaster in here has to be firm. You've used the big bowl. It'll give you enough plaster to fill the impression, one of them, and enough plaster to fill that. And then you're just going to chill for 10 minutes. About 1/5 of your class, well, hopefully not your class, about 1/5 of all the previous classes I've taught since '04 have had issues with this piece. About 5 out of 50. 8. Well, one year it was a dozen. Anyway, hopefully this year we're going to improve that. Okay, 10 minutes is up. You can just see how firm it is. Just put your finger into the plaster. Because you really don't mix plaster in a bowl anymore, you don't have a good feel for, well, how firm is firm enough. You're trusting the machine. We need to use the machines. The machines are help. They're no substitute for knowing what you're doing. You just want this plaster firm enough so now when you turn it and set it upside down, this tray isn't going to do this. Watch. Sink. Okay? Let's view it from this side. When you set the tray with the alginate in it, with the you know what I'm trying to say, the plaster's in the impression, and you're sitting it down onto the plaster that's inside this base, it's not going to do this. Watch. Da, 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 da. If you have too wet of a mix and it's not begun to set yet and you only waited 3 minutes, 3 to 5, which is basically what I was telling them before because I thought that they could feel the plaster, but I missed an obvious point. You know, I'd see a tray, you know, about that high above the blue base, and I'd go, oh hell, they're going to have to do one of two things. They're either going to have to try to add base to it. Yeah, it's a waste of time. Just go back to the clinic. Next week we've got 16 chairs reserved for all of you to take impressions on each other. The following week after that I got 4 chairs over there set aside for anybody who needs to go back and repeat the impression. Just pull the trigger quick. Try not to have to shortcut it and add a base. It'll waste your time. Time is money. Don't waste your time. Now, what I want you to do is hold your stuff like I'm holding this right now, and I want you to take the base, kind of suspend in midair, the tray above the base, you know, pretending to see the alginate, pretending to see the plaster, you know, and now I've got it set at an appropriate height. You know, that's probably about the height at which it's going to sit. You just hold yours in the air, just like I'm doing. you can see on your screen. Oh, yeah, good. You're all looking at your screen. I want you to rotate this puppy around now so you can kind of see from the lingual, is what I'm trying to get you to do, is to see it from the lingual. All right? Now this is the view that you have to be able to understand that the lingual flanges and the buccal flanges as well on this sit fairly low. And I'm trying to give you an idea of how low they can go, and if the lower tray is set in there at an angle like this, those flanges go down so far that they're inordinately close to the bottom of the tray, which means that the thickness of the plaster underneath the metal flanges is not going to be tall enough for you to take this out. We're pretending now that we've got the whole thing in plaster, and we're going to take it to the trimmer wheel, and here's the rotating wheel, we're going to bring this thing into the rotating wheel. You're not going to have enough plaster on the bottom of that to be able to get the bottom of that cut parallel to the occlusal plane of the teeth. So if you're holding your own tray above the metal, above the rubber blue base, maybe you can visualize what next week you're not going to be able to see at all unless somebody sensitized you to it. To use your x-ray eyes and kind of guesstimate, well, how deep are those flanges, and therefore how not so tall is the plaster going to be. You know, there'll be some of you are still going to have to screw it up, make your own mistake, and then learn from that. Sometimes that's the best way to learn. Troubleshooting the Ortho model trimmer. So what I want you to do is to go back into the rooms, buy the orthodontic model trimmer. I want you to look at it. If we can get, 3 groups of you, we'll go to the orthodontic model trimmer first. You can kind of see the Wehmer model trimmers in there as well. And I just want you to, I want each one of you to do a hands-on thing, just turning that wheel and seeing how that guide rolls. Any questions so far? Now, if you go back to the beginning of this video and look at the first 3 images, the first image shows you the Wehmer model trimmer with the angle guide not screwed all the way down. It is sitting up in the air. I can always use a bad example of how it should not be to make a point. And that was problem number 1, because if it's not screwed all the way down, water gets around it and goes down the hole in the plate out onto the table, and you're bellied up to the table in front of the model trimmer, and all of a sudden you feel the front of you getting wet. And now you look like you peed your pants when you turn around. That was the problem number 1 I'm trying to teach you how to fix. If you look at the second image, a second problem with getting a good orthodontic diagnostic model trimmed was that Whipmix trimmer, which you're now looking at, has a variable plate that can't really be set exactly at 90 degrees to the rotating trimmer wheel. Don't use the Whipmix trimmer to trim an orthodontic diagnostic model. Use the Wehmer trimmer. Why? The plate is set at 90 degrees to the rotating wheel. The third image shows a close-up of the plate with the hole in the plate into which the angle guide gets screwed down all the way in. Some of you were trimming the models last year with the aligner guide out with that hole wide open. It's no wonder that several of that class went to the maintenance guy and said, "Why did you screw us over buying these new Wehmer trimmers? We hate them. They're making us look like we peed our pants." Put the angle guide in the hole, screw it all the way down, and leave it in there. That way, nobody in this class is going to get socially embarrassed. Have a beautiful day in the laboratory, trimming orthodontic diagnostic models.